Hello, welcome to Tribe of Humankind. We've gathered 6 of us here tonight to talk about the spiritual evolution of our species. In order to do that, we're going to drop in with what is most real in our hearts right now. We're going to take a look at how we are connecting in with our bigger global community, how our hearts are calling for us to show up in our own lives and with each other right now, and how we can also use our presence to support each other, both in conversations like this and in community. Today is August 19th, 11 days after the Maui Fires, and this is our first Tribe of Humankind recording since the Maui Fires, and so I'm holding space for that to come up in our conversation tonight and for us to reflect on that as a group. With the heaviness of heart that these fires have brought on, we really have decided to hold tonight's conversation in a most prayerful way and most reverent way possible, for all the hearts and feelings of everyone being touched in all different ways by this tragedy. And in order to yes, may we all hold each other in love and tenderness tonight as we share our truths and perspectives around what's going on in our lives and our connection with the Maui Fires.
Grand scheme, not just covering up the issues, but feeling it all the way and healing the root, not just the symptoms.
That's it. Healing the root.
Sure. Getting to the root of things, Rua and Shane, with Maui is like, yes, I think this is something I'm being asked to just be really honest with myself, like gut-wrenchingly honest. What is it that I'm here to do? It's time is ticking. And I'm really good at doing things and being good at them just to get them done, or to support other people, or to do what I think I'm meant to be doing. And somehow the level of grief that I've experienced, that I don't even understand why, for these people and this land, has been so present with me this week. And I'm really being asked to get to the root of what I'm here to do. And the universe is getting gnarly with me until I step up and do it.
But that also extends outward. My frustration builds when I feel like someone is lying to me, or the authorities lying to me. So that's one of the things I'm also facing into this week.
Can you be more specific? I think I understand what you're saying, but can you just go ahead and spell it out?
Yeah, definitely. I think it all started when I, started with listening to the podcast with Aubrey Marcus and Charles Eisenstein, and they were talking about Bobby Kennedy. And Charles brought up a really beautiful point about how, since JFK's murder, we know that there is something that government isn't telling us. There was the lie that started, and that created a crack in the circle. And so that podcast really got me thinking. And in relation to that, looking at all the videos that was coming through Maui, and the weapons that they've been creating these fires, that really got me talking and really stirred me up, really hurting my heart in a way, bringing in the agenda, and once again lying to people. And COVID being another one. So it's like, to me, it's like, seems like there's one after the other. And as people, as a person, standing up to the authority and reclaiming my own sovereignty in the means, and knowing that it may cost me everything. So moving through that fear as well. So there's many layers I'm moving through, and I'm one of those people like to use my calm sense of tone to get a message across, and sometimes I feel that it doesn't often work. I feel that people are to a certain degree desensitized unless I scream at their head. It's like what I'm trying to communicate is not being heard. So that's part of the challenge that I am facing into. So, and for me, it's really important not to lose hope, because I also have a tendency of like, fuck this, like screw the whole thing and just throw it all up and then just go live in the woods. But I also know that that's not the solution, that I'm needed here as a waking warrior. I'm needed to fight, even though that's not how I prefer to do things, but it's like my energy is being called, and that's why I'm here, and surrendering into that feeling and asking spirit or asking for guidance to guide me in the best way possible as how can I serve in these times. And part of my intuition says that it's just the beginning. Just the beginning and slowly getting started. So I don't want to go too far into this. I want to pause here and perhaps pass the mic around. Or
Just tag one thing you said, just like in standing up for your sovereignty, there's an implied threat.
But I still believe in the core of what I'm doing and what I'm personally called to do, which is to, when necessary, help people to find the spiritual warrior aspect, because it is, I believe, at the core of this. And we've had conversations where I've used the term spiritual warfare or spiritual warrior, and Manu, for instance, you would say, well, I'm very careful not to use that terminology, and I've said things that are a little bit negative and maybe a bit downbeat and not super lovely. And so it's not that I don't think we should be positive. It's not, I don't think we should be sensitive. It's not any of those things. It's that they need to be protected, and there needs to be a framework. And that framework I learned in martial arts. So in martial arts, what happens is you get tired, you get hurt, you feel pain, you learn things that work and don't work. There's discomfort, there's and its whole being, the reason it exists is because the world will sometimes attack you, right? And through history, that's been consistent. And most spiritual teachings address that in some way. They look at the fact that there is danger, threat, risk, and danger in the world, and you have to assess it, you have to look at it, and if you're clever, you come up with some sort of response, and that becomes a way of being, a way of living, a custom, something you pass down or whatever. And I've been, what I think the spiritual community of the world right now doesn't have is any of that, and it's going to be required for the next period of whatever we go through as a species, as a spiritual community. And up until now, it's been storytelling. It's been like an interesting, you can choose to or you can choose not to, but I think we're about to hit a period of time where there is no choice. And so we're going to need to bring up some people who want to, can bring that in and start to train that warrior aspect of spirituality. Do you see what I mean?
So when you see it like that, you are a warrior, and we all are here. Spiritual warrior, we all have our superpowers that we weren't taught when we were born into this 3D matrix, and we're just now figuring it out, and we are supporting each other through this. And well, like I said earlier, it was just devastating what happened over there, and my heart weighed heavy with grief and shock and all of that. And but knowing, like, that's why I resonate with the warrior, like, and I've been praying and meditating with friends, and it's really, when I go into that energy space over Maui, I see so many beautiful souls, like from all over the world. Just, we're like, there's a lot putting so much love and energy and just like power back to the land. That's why there's this time and space. There's more consciousness now to do that and to kind of battle the dark forces that Mana was talking about. We're in a dual, we've been in a dual reality, and I feel we're trying to break free from that. And so we saw some real darkness that just happened on Maui. And so we're, going in and clearing that, and just really, I had to, because you can get caught in that grief. And I felt like I was caught in shock and grief, and like, I cry. I've been, just feeling sad as well. It's been a heavy week and a half. So like I was saying earlier, the 3D matrix that we've all been kind of enslaved in by a darker force. And so when I do go tune in with that, Maui is a very powerful portal place. So now we're getting into like the other dimensional spaces, the 4D. So there's, they want to control the light. They want to dim the light. And so when I went in there, we've been lied to by the authorities. And there are, people putting out lots of evidence of, kind of an attack that happened, not just a wildfire. So I've been going in that realm with those dark forces that wanted to wipe out something very, very powerful, because we are in a very powerful time to break free from them, break free from the dark, that the darker forces that have been wanting to dim the light and take over, and it's gotten way out of balance. And so we're here to transmute that and say no, they cannot do that. So
just to be a little bit even more specific, when you say they, who do you understand they to be?
That feels complex. It's the military, it's the government. They want to put a military base there because it has really good access. There's a port, it's a good location. They've already got military bases on Big Island. And then it's also corporations. Bezos is trying to buy a big portion of that land. Oprah's over there getting her fingers involved. I don't know what her intentions are, but it's money. It's not like certain people. It's money, and it's whoever is invested in the corruption, the raping, and the manipulation of the lands, and not connected to the work.
But Shane and I have connections and friends in the Hawaiian Islands, and therefore somehow I'm on these Instagram accounts, and everything you've said is what I have been receiving as well, including the account of the road being blocked. Like they were trying to leave and they were diverted down onto Front Street. And my real question, and Shane and I have been talking about this, is and a little bit, this is what Manu was talking about at the beginning, like, how do we address this? How do we bring voice to something this dark? Also, whilst the local people that have been affected are saying, we just need time to grieve. Like, we need the respect, because there is a lot that's moving. And I think because everyone is so on the edge of we've had enough, after COVID, there's so many things that just keep happening, that we've just had enough, and we're ready for a breakthrough. We're ready for people to take a stand and for some kind of justice to start happening. And so how do we be the spiritual warriors? How do we bring voice to this darkness, and also respect the fact that there also needs to be a deep grieving period? And is it, I don't know, is it distasteful to talk about this whilst people are still looking for the loved ones that are dead and died, and they need to reclaim their bodies and hold ceremonies for them? I feel this I feel this fervor that we need to like get this truth out there, and people need to know. But then I also wonder if there's a timing to that. How do we walk this path? You know, there's so many levels of pain that I feel. I feel like pain for the human pain, for these beautiful people that are really, you know, like the glimmer of hope in this is how the community rallied together and how they managed to just not even listen to that white noise of government and FEMA and Red Cross, and get boats to a place where they could actually man chain food up. Like they just found a way in a real heart-centered, grounded, connected to humanity. We've got this. They've taken care of their community. And meanwhile, you've just got these hollow, empty voices of Governor Josh Green with his whiteboard and his, you know, his points that he keeps talking about, that what he's doing is oh, sorry, I've gone off on a tangent because I get really emotional about it. I don't know what we're meant to do, but I want to do something. And then I want to be honoring of the people that are suffering at the same time as sounding the alarm bells. And how do we do that? You know, how do we walk this path?
It's important to talk about it. They want us to talk about it. Yes, they need to grieve, but they want people to know the truth. And the pallets and pallets and pallets of food and supplies that were getting withheld from FEMA and Red Cross that the people were getting access to and bringing to the people on the boats. FEMA and Red Cross is claiming that there's people are stealing when all they're doing is helping. And really what I think is most important to realize is that this has been happening for thousands of years. It happened to the Native Americans to create America. It's happened to my ancestors. It's happened to all of our lineages. I don't know anything about my culture and lineages because I've never even been to that side of the world, because for generations we've been displaced. This has been going on for a very long time. This is just the most recent, right in our hearts, right in our homes example. But we've been going through this for a long time.
And I also hear Becky. I think it's a very beautiful point that Becky brings, which I also was wondering the same thing. When is a good time to bring this up? Because people are grieving. People are going through that process. But I also believe that it is a good time to talk about it. I think it's good that Shane put out the invite to have the conversation while it's all still very alive, very present. And for me, like, is something else that I want to share in this moment is that understanding the short-sightedness. Feel that as humans, I also want to take full responsibility for this. Is that we see like what's best in the short term, but may not see what's best for us in the long term. For the earth, with the larger picture. I also say that in terms of the corporation, like a short-term revenue, where the quarters looks good, the stocks goes up, but how is that affecting us on the long term? I think it's really important for us to bring that into our day-to-day awareness, and that larger community, or like a people that we are connected, they also have awareness of that. It's to what Ruo was saying in the beginning, it's just to take a break, pause, take a breath. Just know what we are creating. But I think it's important that we stand up. And like I said, it may cost me everything. But yeah, it's one of those things I also need to sit with myself and to be like, yeah, it's probably mean death eventually, but I think it's time, you know, and that's part of the laughter where it comes from. It's like, okay, yeah, I've done this before. I prepared this, I've done, you know, and that this is scary things, and I've died like number of times. But that's also the part of the laughter. It's like, yeah, okay, here we go again. See if I can make another change before I die this time.
Yeah. I'd like to pierce through to some clarity here, to beyond just the human error, or like there's a little bit of corporate greed that's kind of gotten out of hand. Like, let's pierce through to our clearest understanding of what's going on our planet right now and not beat around the bush about it. Like, I appreciate you bringing up the crack of awareness that came with the assassination of Kennedy. That takes it back to the 1970s. That's not the beginning. Rua mentioned earlier, it's thousands of years old. Can we awaken in our short lifetime to see what's happening presently? Yeah, within our own governments, if we look back to their origin stories of these governments, the genocide on the land where the government gets started, at what point does the government ever tell you the truth? At what point is the government not killing its people? You know, we just travel through time with 9/11, COVID, fires, use our powers of discernment. What's behind it? There's military, there's government, there's corporate money. What's behind that? What's going on with our lives right now? Can we see it? Can we awaken to the truth of what's really happening so we don't trick ourselves into just a upsetting news story? At what time is it okay to put it on the shelf and think about it later? Or are we like lifetimes past doing that? And time to wake up to our powers of discernment and understand what's happening on our planet right now. I have some more words to speak to this, but I want to pass it around. And we're nearing the end of our time of our discussion. It's been really beautiful. We've touched into realness on so many different levels, but we only have a few minutes left.
And what I think we need is an integrated conversation that conspiracy theorists have contributed to before that was hacked and turned into ridiculous, silly nonsense. Religion probably originally was talking about real things that really matter. Psychology, a pure version from a benevolent place, probably is useful. There is a conversation space that needs to be discovered and arrived at by enough people simultaneously on this planet for it to dissolve the separateness. Everyone can retain I am this, but I'm also part of this conversation. I am this, but I'm also part of this conversation. But if we can reach that middle place, which is sane and rational and talks about real things and brings in some amount of bigger thinking, more mysterious unknowing, I think we've got a chance. But the harder one digs into their little place, the less likely it is that we turn this around, I would say.
The problem is that people are disconnected from who they are. The problem is that we have a government and we have tourism and we have imports and we have exports, and none of that is sustainable. As soon as the earth was seen as something to get something from, instead of receive a blessing, we're stewards here. We're meant to protect, we're meant to honor, we're meant to share and collaborate. As soon as we think that we own the land, or we own the animals, or we're going to control other humans, we've got a problem. We're under the condition of manipulation right now, and we're at odds with each other and everything around us because of it. What we need is to come back to the grassroots of it, to come back to where is my food and my water coming from. Shelter, it should not cost money. We should not be at odds with just existing, meaning that we're indebted to someone else. When we exist in a sacred place, and anything could be sacred, when we exist in a place, we make it sacred. And then we are responsible for caretaking that aina, that land, wherever it is. With who we're around, we're caretaking, and it's taking care of us. As soon as we create dominion over, we seek death. That's what's going on. We need to actually have sovereignty and interdependence in community structures that are equal, in villages that are sustainable. That means internal governing, not external government. No borders, no limitations. Nothing is owned, everything is ours. That's how we're meant to live.
Yes, and I do see us, that's what we heard the call to come back, as warriors, as these light beings, star seed, whatever name you want. But that's what we're here to do. We're here to join together and not fall prey to the they that we talked about earlier, the dark forces that got out of balance in this realm that we're in. So that's what I feel, is that all of us here, because we're having this conversation and joining our consciousness together, we came back for this time so we can create that, what you're talking about, and we will. Like you said, thousands of years. I have memory of, and I just reading from Earth Star Z, and so I have a memory back in Lemuria. This happened, and there's part of Lemuria is on Kauai, and I have, grief from that time when it got annihilated, because I was there, and so. So this is we've been caught in a loop by these dark ones, and we are not them. So that's what we have to do, is become that sovereign, but still collective at the same time, and say, no, you're not doing it this time. We are breaking free from the loop, the cycle. And I know that that's why this is the time that we are doing that.
It's beautiful. I resonate with that, Janae. I feel like I've been here before and watched this. I have a very powerful memory, actually, of watching us about to descend, and this was another lifetime. Mm-hmm. And now I'm back here to help that not happen again this time. I feel like, Lex, you mentioned something at the very beginning about feeling slightly different from everybody else, and you brought up the idea of the spiritual warrior, and I just sitting here with you all, I very much feel people's energy, and I feel the energy of the space. And I feel like we all need to just be more at peace with the fact that we are all spiritual warriors, and we all carry this very different resonance or frequency. So how we stand in that spiritual warrior will look very different. And then I think somehow, because we believe we're separate, we haven't quite fully embodied the fact that we are one entity. Yeah. That separateness can bring anxiety between us, because we desperately want to be understood. We desperately want to be part of that collective, that tribe. We don't want that idea of separation. And for me, I feel like the way, at least a step towards the way through this, is dropping down into heart consciousness, like trying to understand this, see this, experience this whole existence more in the heart space, rather than in our rational minds of trying to understand, and I'm talking to myself, because this is what I've been doing all week. I'm trying to understand what's going on, and how dark, how can it be this dark, and how can we help people, and when's the right time to grieve, and all of this keeps us out of our solution. And I really feel like what we've seen on the ground is people really moving from their hearts, because they've had no other choice. That's all they've got left, is love of the fact that they're alive, they're with their ohana, they're with their families, they're with their friends, and they're really showing us, and the world is watching, and they're really showing us, like, this is the way we walk through this. And that has to win, surely, doesn't it, over the darkness? Mm-hmm. I believe it has to. I don't know the timeline of it, but yeah,
it does win. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Becky. As she's sharing now, and also when Jamae was sharing earlier, the image that was coming to my mind's eye was, what I was seeing is that this darkness is actually engulfing the light. So there's darkness and it just completely covers the light, but the light is still alive from within. And once again, it emerges out of that darkness and it just completely blows it away. And that's what I also feel to be true for me, is that there is that moment of like engulf and it feels like everything is lost, the hope is lost, or all is gone, but it's not. It's still working from within, and at least that's my truth around that. And but I also am curious to hear Shane's point of view. You've been so good, like orchestrating and creating this space in such a beautiful way, taking us through, inquisitiveness and like curiosity. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in the last spin that how you brought up that curiosity. I'd love to hear what's alive within yourself in regards to, what you shared earlier.
Thank you, Becky, for saying that spiritual warriors all look different. I agree with that. There's a lot of different roles to play. Rua, you talked about us being certain ones of us that were disconnected from ourselves or disconnected from the land. And I asked you earlier, who's the they, who are they, and Jamae, you were talking a lot about like dark forces in the fourth dimension or other dimensions. And it's like, to me, and I love the analogy, Mano, of the darkness surrounding the light and the light coming through. It's a beautiful imagery. To me, what we're up against is we are all one, even the dark part of us. And that dark part of us is very disconnected from itself, from its truth of who and what it is. And in that, it feels disconnected from the earth. And it goes into domination, control of the earth, of other humans, of the planet. And I think as we come alive and connected with ourselves and our truth and the planet and life, we can witness disconnect. We can witness what disconnect looks like. Can witness what greed and money take people out of their center. Where power, domination, control take people out of their center. Where dark forces start to work through them to do great darkness on the planet, on a planetary scale, and that's happening on a planetary scale. And we have to be discerning with our eye to see that, to call it out, to speak it out for any who are asleep and missing it. The governments, are like bad egos out of control, that are serving their own egoic interest, that have nothing to do with the people that they pretend to represent. They pretend that that's part of the black magic, to put the name on the forehead of the opposite of what you are doing for everyone. But people who want to deceive everyone and put names like FEMA and Red Cross and US military and US aid and Hawaiian government across their foreheads and abuse and steal and rape the land and the people over and over again. The domination hasn't stopped. It's relentless across time. Relentless. And also all we have to do is open our eyes to see it. And so when people give their time, their money, their energy to the government that enslaves them, when they hand the money so that the government can put an armed guard to your head and tell you to go away, tell you to get off the land, you're paying for that armed guard that puts the gun to your head. You're worshiping that entity that enslaves you and that abuses you by pretending that people are heroes for going into the military, for pretending like it's a decent and justified living to go and work for the government. We have the light of truth inside of us all, and we need to find that. It's bigger than the government. It's bigger than the planet. And the planet is waiting, is a consciousness itself that's waiting to align with the awakened human being. And when enough awakened human beings are ready, we will align with the planet's power, and that will help us to stand in our power, and we will reclaim it from those who have degenerated into pathetic versions of themselves. They're falling and they're crumbling, and it's up for us to call it out, to see it for what it is and call it out. People give their power away to authorities, to fake experts outside of themselves. You're being slaughtered by your government and you can't see it. It's horrific on a grand scale. It's terrifying, it's demoralizing, but it doesn't have to continue. We're not here to sit by and watch it idly. We're here to use our voices. We're here to use our sacred witness. We're here to use our hearts to hurt and grieve with each other and call it for what it is. We're not helping them by pretending that our truth is different than what it is.
Beautiful. So it's dropping into our heart for everything you just said. And to break free from that darkness around the ball of light is we all do drop into our heart space, and light dissolves dark, and that's what we're here to do. Nothing can be, darkness can't be in the light. So that's beautiful, Shane. It's love. It's the highest frequency.
Here to shine our light of awareness. It's nothing else. Shine our light of awareness on what we see.
Mm-hmm.
What I see about Maui, it reminds me of California when I drove through there after the fires and saw guardrails melted into the ground next to trees that aren't burnt. I built many fires. It takes a lot of wood. You can burn all the wood you want all night long and a piece of metal in the middle. Who's collected nails out of the fire the next morning? They're not melted. Notice they're not melted. Those little pieces of nails, they're not melted. Tons of wood all night long. All the wood you can put on that fire. Grow it as big as your house. Guess what? The nails are still there. They're not melted. It takes a lot of heat to melt metal. What I see is a microwave technology. I see metal and stone getting heated up from the inside out. And trees don't get heated up the same way. And bones are dust. Cinder block is dust. Metal is melted into the streets. And there's trees right there. There was even, Becky and I saw blue awnings still up in the
And
center,
garbage cans.
in plastic
plastic
garbage cans. Think about microwave. Who does this? It's intentional. It's not an accident. And you see it by how everyone responds. No alarms, no help, no water, blocking supplies. Jeff Bezos says he's putting $100 million down for the rebuild. Will any of that go to the families? You can see what the agenda is by the response. We don't need to put evidence and proof of how they did it, but that is out there. There's proof that our government has been manipulating the weather since Vietnam. There's another thing to put next to JFK, 17 years of Vietnam War. What was that about? They made it rain in Vietnam. They had the technology then. They'll tell you that on the internet. They didn't make it rain on the Maui Fires 50 years later, spending billions of dollars every year on directed energy weapons. They're not going to use any of that money to help rebuild Maui. They have the technology to create drought and rainstorms. That's been out since the 80s. The US and Russia have known that they could create drought and rain where they wanted to cripple a nation to its knees. Since the 80s, we've had that technology. We can see hurricanes and steer them. What's left? What's left? Did we use that technology there? Did some other nation use that technology there? Because nobody's even curious about that. Could we be under attack from our enemies? Nobody's asked that question. Are we being attacked by our own government? Has that ever stopped?
And it's beyond the government.
Hmm.
It's not really it's there. These are unseen people at the very top so the government is just minions following orders. Because not all the government, I know there's good in the government as well, but these dark ones, I'm going to call them, have infiltrated our schools, the government, our healthcare, all of it. And we need to say, no more. You guys are done. You're not welcome here on planet Earth anymore. And goodbye. And that's what we're all here to do as spiritual warriors. We heard a cry for help from planet Earth. Gaia, Mother Earth, she is consciousness. And we came in forgetting, because we get pulled into the false matrix of amnesia, and then we're programmed with all their programs. And so that's what we're doing as spiritual warriors, star seeds, powerful, eternal souls that we are. And we will.
I feel like I've had this awareness in the last month or so that as we open ourselves up, as we kind of evolve in our conscious levels of consciousness, we are able to, on a cellular level, hold more light. There's a lot of light that's coming in, a lot of light energy that's coming into the planet right now to help speed up our evolution of consciousness. But I also feel like with that, we are able to hold the same amount of darkness. So we start seeing, the more light we can hold, the more dark we can see. And it's meant to be that way. And that is a really, for me at the moment, it feels like, this is a lot to hold. You know, the light's big to hold. The dark is, but we just have to trust that we're here for that, and we are made for that. And we're going to bust through that darkness because we can hold that much light. If we allow ourselves to, we trust, you know. And a lot of it, I think, is remembering. It's ancient remembering. You know, we don't have to learn any of this stuff. We just have to fall back into ourselves, and it's all there. And everything they do tries to keep us distracted from that, right? Just you know.
I believe we as civilizations have destroyed ourselves before with trying to weaponize the energy of the planet and using planetary energies and turning them into weapons is how we've destroyed ourselves as entire societies. in times past and had to start over. And this is a deep wound in our psyche, and it's playing out again. And I think the more we become aware of this and call attention to it, we can awaken the collective consciousness, whether that is the choice it wants to play out again. Thank you for reminding us, Jamae, of our eternal souls, and with our eternal souls and our eternal consciousness and strength, what is it we're here to do right now? How is it we want to show up inside of these lives right now? What really is happening on planet Earth right now? What's our role to play within it?
Well, really quick, I like what Becky said, like it's remembering. We all have the capability of remembering why we're here. It is in the Akashic records, all that is quantum space, higher self, creator, to bring that remembrance in of our true mission here. So that's really important. And then stay in the heart space.
The two biggest lessons that Maui's offering right now, the Maui Fires, is to remember why we're here and move into the heart space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the real invitation. And it's hard to hold that because there's so much like desire for justice that you can fall into, you know? Yeah, a little anger and
Yeah.
And if we can peel away the anger, then get to the core, like we were talking about earlier, because anger stems from deep, deep pain. So it's starting from there, the core of the pain and grief and all of that to work through. And that's why we're all here, to connect, and hopefully others that are watching this will connect in with this consciousness as well, to fuel our light and just keep fueling it and keep healing and keep that unconditional love, highest frequency, growing and growing.
Well, we'll go ahead and end our conversation aspect of our discussion tonight and move into the final part where we just sit with our inner self, with our higher self, and get in touch with everything that we spoke, that we heard spoken, that came through our whole group tonight. And see if there's any last message that your higher self would like to speak into the group and speak out to the world, to anyone who would want to watch or listen to this at some point in the future. Something that feels like it needs to be said. So we'll just take a couple of breaths, and then whenever someone is feeling ready to share their message from their higher self, go ahead and speak. We'll take a couple of breaths together first.
Everything that we need is in the silence of our own soul, held in the hands of each other, and seen in the eyes of our brothers and sisters.
And remember the love that we have for each other, that infinite love that we have for each other, so we can dissolve the illusion of separateness.
Yeah, when all is lost, That's when all is found. When I have nothing to lose, thus I'm free. Free to be me.
Yeah. It's just coming in strong for me as I'm there above Maui, and I just feel a lot of love, and I feel the real. I see actually the beautiful resurrection of Lahaina and the sacred waters and the sacred pond. I feel like it's a real happening. Yeah, I feel like it's a real happening. It will happen, and it's a pivotal point in our timeline, in our journey, all of us.
Difficult for me to talk on this, but if I'm authentic, I feel into that. I've felt into it. I've sensed into all of it, and that's not a nice feeling, obviously. And I'm not there. I'm just talking about it as something on the other side of the world, but I've sensed into it. For me, every day is a sensing into somewhere in the world where that kind of stuff is happening. It's been happening for a long time, and I'm continually sensing into those things, managing it, and trying to come back to some sort of way of getting through the day. So for me, this is not much different than any other day or any other week or any other month or any other year. This stuff is happening everywhere constantly. And I just hope that at some point everybody joins in the conversations we need to have, and we start to get there before these things happen, and prevent them and stop them and change the world. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Holy life that we are. May we grieve our losses. May we stand up and take responsibility for what we're about to create in the future. May we use our eyes to see our own sacred and see those who are not seeing the sacred, and be honest with ourselves and identify out loud those who are missing the sacred and abusing the sacred, and clearly define where and when and how that takes place in our lives around us, so that it does not continue, so that we can see intentions of others, and so that the intentions of some can be clearly seen by all, of what they are and what they are not. Thank everyone for bringing their bravery and their heart truth into this space tonight. Thank any of our audience that may listen to this recording later. We've done our best to approach this evening in a sacred manner and in a prayerful way. Rua started our evening with a chant, and I'd like to let her finish it this evening with the same chant and close us out tonight. Thank you, everyone.
I'm going to sing a different song, and this one is invoking peace and harmony. E como mahi, maluhia e como mai. E como mahi, ho o maluhia e como mai. O maluhia e como mai, maluhia e como mai, e como mai. O maluhia e como mai. O maluhia e como mai. E ho o maluhia e kahua. E ho o maluhia e kahunua. E como mai, maluhia e como mai, e como mai, o maluhia e como mai. O maluhia e como mai.
Beautiful. Mm.
Thank you, everyone. Till next time. Bye-bye.